Hey, good morning, everyone. Are you with me? Mr. Andrea, Mr. Renata, Miss Maria, Miss Marta, are you here?
Yes, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Okay, so what about the rest? I think we can we can use this gallery view, so we will see all participants if you like, unless I think it will be better. Okay, so good morning, Marta. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Okay, Andrea is with us. Okay, so I think we can begin because, well, as you know, my name is Przemysław Wasiewicz. I work at Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, so it's my pleasure to be in charge of this panel. I think that the best option for me, and I think I cannot do it in another way as a moderator, will be to change to change a little bit the plan for our panel. So I will be the last. That will be the best solution. So I'm not a host, but I'm hosting this panel, an online panel on economic and political relations in Asia. So maybe we'll begin because we have like two less presentations. Unfortunately, we will not have Marcin Grabowski with us, and as far as I know from Marta, there will be no presentation of Agnieszka Wójcik-Czerniawska and Professor Krzysztof Marecki. So we'll have like two less. So my proposal is that we will have, let's say, 15 minutes per each presentation, right? So I think it will be enough. What do you think? Will you manage to? Okay, so let's do it this way, that we'll have our presentations like 15 minutes each, and then we'll follow with the discussion. So we'll have lots of time left for questions and comments and whatever comes to your mind, right? So I think thanks to that, it will be better, and that will be the best, probably the best schedule for the whole panel. So without further ado, because I think is Togrul Alamanli with us? I cannot see him here, but Miss Maria, any news from Mr. Alamanli?
No.
Okay, so we don't know whether he's joining us. Okay, so maybe Professor Andrea Czajkova will begin. If you are ready, Andrea, then the floor is yours, right?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear Przemysław, for me it's a pleasure as well to be with this group with my presentation in this section. In truth, I don't want to disturb you perhaps so long time. I would like to introduce you my project of my group in my university. Well, firstly, I would like to start with this introduction myself. My name is Andrea Czajkova. I'm from the Faculty of Social Sciences of the University of St. Cyril and Methodius in Trnava in Slovakia. I hope you know Trnava. If not, it's the best time to visit because our town is really beautiful. So with my colleagues at my faculty, we are working on or finishing the project about China in international relations. So this is also the reason why I would like to introduce, because of course when we start with the country in the international relations, it's necessary to start with the internal relations of the country, and my aim, I would like to share my screen if it is possible. I would like to switch to the presentation, if it is okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. Of course. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we can.
So this is it.
Okay.
In truth, the topic of my presentation for today is specific of demographic development in China, of populations on. As you may see, this presentation is the common result of me and my husband. We are a little bit of the scientific family, let's say. My husband is from the Department of International Relations, the Faculty of Political Science and International Relations of the Matej Bell University in Banska Bystrica. Again, if you don't know Banska Bystrica, it's good point to think about to visit this beautiful town. But back to China, the aim of my paper or my presentation, or let's say the part of my project, scientific project, is to point out the risks and the prospects of the sustainability of China's socioeconomic development based on analysis of China's current demographic policies. Why? Why to choose this topic? Why to work this topic? What is the problem in truth? From a demographic point of view, China is currently facing two main trends in the context of historical development. Firstly, life expectancy in China has improved significantly over the last few decades and moved closer to developed countries. And secondly, China's fertility rate has changed even more dramatically. With the very serious demographic challenges facing China, there is no guarantee that parametric adjustments such as shifting the retirement age will ensure the financial health of the pension system by de facto avoiding bankruptcy. Why I start with this, let's say, not positive beginning. In 2000, the number of people aged 60 and older reached 10% of the total Chinese population, making China an aging society according to internationally recognized standards. China is widely recognized as a nation that is growing old before getting rich. Let's say an example of a country where population policy has significantly influenced both the country's economic and social system for many decades is, as I said, currently China. Today's population policy aimed at controlling the population of the People's Republic of China affects approximately, you may see I have the number 1.4, it is more than 1.4 billion Chinese. This policy also includes other restrictions in the form of national migration and gender policies. Among other things, it has an impact on other areas of life of the country, including education, healthcare, and other social spheres. Its population development from the second half of the 20th century represents a unique experiment, let's say, in the application of political decisions and tools to the functioning of society as well. However, the consequences of such a policies can be largely politically distorted by the decision of political elites to knowingly or unknowingly modify the facts. Such a case of may be conscious misinformation informing about the total Chinese population. Some of scientists, for example, concluded in some interesting books like Big Country with an Empty Nest, the Chinese population, or the author of this book, Fushan, concluded in this book that population statistics have been based on false and exaggerate data since 2000, and that the actual size of the Chinese population may be more than 100 million smaller than what the National Statistical Office states. This author and his colleague found that UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, predictions for the Chinese population were based on markedly inaccurate data that caused the deviation of tens of millions of people. This may be due to the fact that both Chinese and UNFPA officials have been for years using to measure Chinese birth statistics and to predict the future Chinese population trajectory in correct total birth rate data varying from 1.6 to 1.8. Let's look a little bit to numbers. The current population, official numbers of the current population of China should be somewhere in between, as I said, 1.44 billion let's say 1,000,000,439 millions. With this second number, it should be 1.441 millions as the world matter yesterday. This was written. So China's 2020 population should be this 1.4339 according to UN data. China population is equivalent to 18.47% of the total world population. China ranks number 1 in the list of countries by population, and the population density in China is 153 per square kilometer. The total land of China is 10 million approximately 10 million kilometers, and what is also necessary to point is that more than 60% of the population is urban. Here you may see at the graphs how the China population is rising between 1950 and 2020, and at the same time you may see how the yearly population growth rate is going down. What about the life expectancy in China? You may see that the numbers of the males and females together, population is rising still from the 1950, as I showed you before, till 2020. But here we may see especially the life expectancy of the 79.7 years by females and 75.4 years by males. These are also important numbers. As I told you at the beginning, that China is coming to the elder or let's say old population country. Here we may see the, let's say, the result of the one child policy. As I told you, there were some experiments in China, especially with one child family policy. It was only allowed to have one child for a family. So now we may see the total fertility rate, where in 2020 we come to the number 1.7 live births per woman in China. So in the next picture or figure, we may see the development of the Chinese population in the official, let's say, numbers. So we are moving from the 1950 with the 554.4 million inhabitants till this nowadays number with 1,439 millions. And you may see also the numbers expected for the years 2030, 2050, and 2100. The same we may see, or very similar numbers we may see with the development of Chinese population by age. This is interesting also for our project or results. Now we can see the development of Chinese population in the graph, and here we may see what I'm talking about, that the number of the young people is in truth falling down, and the number of the population 65 plus is growing up. This may be the main problem of the Chinese population, and we are trying now to find out the best way of the China population, let's say, policies, where we are trying to find the way how, let's say, to improve the possibilities for China. Here we may see the China urban population, where the numbers I told you at the beginning. You may see that in 1955, the percentage of the urban and the rural population was in big difference to nowadays 60% urban population in 2020. In truth, this is a very, let's say, very short description what we are trying to solve or to present as a let's say, as a result of our project. In truth, we are trying to produce the common view to the China situation, as in the internal relations, like with the population and demographic situation, and we are trying to have a common result also with the China's external, let's say, communication within the international relations. As I told you at the beginning, in truth, I don't want to disturb you a very long time. This was really a helicopter view of our project, and if you have any questions or any remarks, I'm prepared to answer you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Professor Czajkowa, Andrea, thank you very much for your presentation. I think that I would think, if you agree, like maybe the best option would be to have comments and questions in the end after all presentations. So we'll have like
Sure.
more freedom for more, let's say, more time for discussion, and then we'll not have to worry, and other panelists will be able to focus on the presentations, right? So maybe we'll do this way. So if you have any questions and comments, for example, to Andrea's paper presentation, just write them down. So just to make sure that you will not forget about them, right, in the end. So I think we can proceed this way. So thank you very much, Professor Czajkowa. And well, according to our schedule, now we'll follow with the presentation of Marta Janowicz, who is representing my home institution. So Marta, the floor is yours, right? I mean, I should say the laptop is yours. I don't know how to say that. Maybe Zoom is yours. So, well, sounds better. Well, in Teams, I could do that. I mean, well, let me try. I can. Well, I cannot do that here, because in Teams we can take control of your microphones here. In Zoom, I don't think that we can do it. I can control my microphone and my camera. I cannot, take control over your stuff, over your equipment.
You may unmute it at the left button side of the picture.
Yeah. It's down left corner. Mute, unmute. Yeah. Okay, Andrea, thank you.
You're welcome.
So maybe, Marta, we will come back to you. So meanwhile, you can check the settings of your laptop or of your PC. Maybe it's muted. I mean, it's muted on your computer, right? It's also an option. I don't know whether you are using Windows or iOS, but in both cases, it can be the case sometimes. So it's not about software. It can be about hardware, right? But then anyway, don't be stressed. Take your time, and we'll come back to you, and then we'll follow with Mrs. Renata Lesner-Schwartz, who will present on. I don't know if my pronunciation will be correct, by Jogt Sangburni, right? A non-obvious cultural spectacle, right? Was it correct?
This is correct. I was thinking it will be the last one, since actually I'm quite surprised that
Yeah, Renata, we cannot hear you. If you could. You know, if there are more technical problems, I will start singing. You don't want me to do that. Trust me. Okay, now we can hear something. I don't know.
Oh, now you can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
if you could just
so
speak up maybe a little bit, yeah,
Okay.
it would be okay.
On the beginning, I say hello to so now it's okay, right?
But it's well, it's very silent. We cannot really. Well, I can hear you at least, but it's very, very silent, I would say. And Andrea, can you hear Renata? No. And now? No, now it's muted. I cannot hear you. Pani Mario, nie wiem, może po waszej stronie jest jakiś problem tam, nie wiem, może pani, bo pani chyba może ma kontrolę nad panelem, nie? Nad wyciszaniem i tak dalej.
Nie, niestety nie mam takiej możliwości ani wyciszenia, ani włączenia mikrofonu uczestnika.
W komercyjnej wersji Zooma, nie wiem, czy korzystacie z komercyjnej wersji?
Dzień dobry Państwu, jestem z opieki technicznej i jest taka możliwość, natomiast wszystko powinno być ok. Natomiast prowadzący, paneliści powinni zwiększyć głośność.
Na swoich komputerach, nie?
Tak. Czy ja mam to powtórzyć po angielsku, czy to wystarczy dla nas?
No, tutaj chyba zainteresowane osoby to usłyszały, nie? Bo
Myślę.
wszyscy znają. Andrea, you also understand, Polish, right? Like we understand Slovak, right? Slovakian language, so it's not a problem to communicate, actually. Now your microphone is silenced. It's muted,
Yeah.
so Andrea.
You switched off.
Sorry. That I've been 1 month ago in Poland in Piła, and we were communicating both English and Polish. It was a very interesting communication. Or in the 3 languages: English, Slovak, and Polish.
Well, it's quite easy for us to understand your language, and as far as I know, it's quite easy for you to follow what we are talking about in Polish, right? It's worse with the Czech language. You don't have any problems. That's obvious because but still for us, the Czech language is quite hard. If you speak.
Not especially. You must. I must say that after 1 week in Prague.
Well, after 1 week.
I could understand everything, and I could speak Czechish language. And I was surprised what a different and strange and funny language is in TVN7.
Oh, okay.
This is interesting. This is always harder for us because we understand absolutely Czech without any problem. But when we have to speak Czech, it is more that we speak, let's say, Czechoslovak.
Oh, yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah. Yeah, the language was once unified. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
But sometimes, it's like when I agree that we can follow in Czech. When it's written, I think, it's sometimes when you have descriptions on goods, like both in Slovak and in Czech, then you can see.
No. In truth, these are 2 languages. I meant that when I like a Slovak, I'm trying to speak Czech. It is never the clear Czech language. It is always like I speak Slovak with the Czech words. This is
Like there are like huge differences in vocabulary.
Yes, many differences, and I always speak wrong with the wrong some words or some grammatics. This is always with But it is for you. It must be really easy to, when you understand Slovak. You then only need to listen Czech language and to speak with them, and you come to the, as colleague said, you come to the language.
Yeah. Or you have to spend 1 week in
Prague.
Then I agree. Sure, it's a good idea. It's like with Chinese. Well, I don't speak Chinese, but when I was in China, after like 2 weeks, the only European channel I had access to was Rai Uno, obviously in Italian, and I understood everything. You know, after 2 weeks, I heard only Chinese around me, and everything was in Chinese. So it's it's scientifically proved that if you are in such an environment, your brain tends to look for whatever sounds or looks familiar, and then all your senses are engaged, and you start understanding languages which are closer to your mother tongue.
It will be connected to your language.
Przepraszam? Okay.
As I said, it will be connected to your language, so you can understand phrases, words.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Sentences.
Italian, is based on Latin, like Polish is to much extent also based on Latin. So yeah. Okay. So do we have Marta or Renata ready? Or?
I could observe that Marta Wozniak is not ready because the camera and the voice is switched off.
So maybe we have section only with 2 participants.
Yeah, now we are left. It's only us. And Renata left. I don't know where. Oh yeah. Pani Mario, gdzie jest pani Renata? Gdzieś nam zniknęła?
A nie wiem, chyba się rozłączyła.
Okay.
Zaraz do niej napiszę, czy wszystko jest w porządku.
A jest pani Renata.
A jest.
Tylko nie widzimy. Pani Renato, nadal widzimy, ale nie słyszymy. Z ruchu ust tylko możemy czytać. A to będzie trudne, bo ja z córkami czasami ćwiczę, ale no, dla zabawy oczywiście, ale nigdy nie wygrywam. Okej.
Pani Renato?
Jestem. Czy mnie słychać?
O, teraz tak, super.
O, dobrze, bo po prostu zrestartowałam nasze połączenie, także mam nadzieję, że teraz jest wszystko w porządku.
Wszystko teraz świetnie. Okay, so the floor is yours.
As I said, I was pretty surprised that my presentation is in such a serious panel, because my topic is about traditional dances on Bali. So I don't know if you are ready for this kind of subjects. I can be the last as in the plan if you want, but yeah. Or should I have present?
It sounds very interesting to me, so I'm more than, I'm eager to listen about it, because quite frankly, I have no idea what it is. So, I guess I saw it once on YouTube because somebody sent me something. I have some students from Indonesia, but it's like, yeah, would be more than.
Sorry, if you see my presentation.
No.
I share.
When you click, okay.
I share the screen.
Yeah.
Bottom of the screen, green button.
No,
perfect.
Okay.
It's here.
Yeah. Now it's okay.
I can. Oh, it's still okay.
Yes, we can see that.
So we are ready. Finally, sorry for the technical problems. I don't know. It was maybe something with connection, because when I restart the meeting, everything goes fine. So as I told you, my presentation will be about the dance research on north part of Bali. the plan of presentation. It will be I think, very short one, because as I told you, I'm quite surprised that I am in this kind of panel, because there is no connection, but actually maybe with some business when we will think about Joget as a part of the family businesses in Bali. I will concentrate on Joget Sangburni. This is the type of Joget which is only in one village in the north part of Bali. And it was the 2016 when the first time I met Joget Sangburni. I was completely in shock, because Joget has his own rules. Joget is a dance which is presented for fun, to having break after hard daily life. How we divide the dances in Bali? The Indonesian school said that we should divide the Balinese dances to the three groups. First group is the Tariwali. It means that is the group of the dances which are sacred religion dances, and they have this relation to the religion of Hindu Dharma, which is the basic religion, dominated religion on island of Bali. And those are dances which are performed mostly in temples. The second group is Tari Bebali. This is the group of the dances whose function is related to the religion, but they can be performed outside of temples. And for me, the most interesting group of the dances is Tari Bali Balihan. They are the dances, secular dances, and all the new compositions which were start from 1945. There are some photos. Rejak dances. This is the dancers, sorry. Rejak dance, it's a dance which is connected to the religion. And the Rejang, it's really, really specific dance, because it can be performed mostly by very young girls who are before their first menstruation. So it means that they are clean and they can connect directly with the gods. And the Rejak dance is performed in temples. Barong procession is some kind of drama dances which has connection with the religion, but they can be presented outside of the temples. The same as Barong and Rangda fights, which are also some kind of dance drama, Balinese traditional dance drama. And the last pictures, they are Legong dances. Legong, it's also sacral, has connection to the religion. This is really the most popular dance on Bali. When you have some prospects from this part of Indonesia, for sure you will find Legong dancers photos. As I told you, the Bali dances, we will divide to the three groups. Two of them, they have connection with the religion, and the third one, Balihan, this is the group of secular dances. They don't related to the religion. There are also new composition and choreographies. And for me, this is the most important and most interesting group, because this group of dances, they are not under the rules which comes from the religion. So it means that they are changing all the time. They are like a mirror of nowadays, and they are really, really interesting. The compositions are really creative, and some of them, mostly, maybe not some of them, but mostly they have this connection, and they are inspired by Balinese tradition. My research was mostly concentrated on the north of Bali. I was concentrated in Buleleng Regency, it's here, but actually my research was concentrated in this part, so it's Buleleng, which is on the east of part of the Bali of this regency. And the most interesting village which I found during this few years of researching, this is Sangburni. Actually, this was the accidentally meeting with the people from that village, because I was just going on the motorcycle from one village to another and collecting the story about the joget dance, which was really interesting for me, because actually we cannot find many information about this dance. When I start to try to find some theoretical information about Balinese dance, about jog, especially about the joget. So what I discovered that the joget is practically not exist. The joget is a dance which is not really classified as an interesting dance for researchers and for horologists and so on and so on. I found some of the information which were written by Ima de Bandem and also Wayan Dibia. There are two scholars which are very famous ethnomusicologists and also dancers and musicians on Bali, and they have they put to their articles some information about joget, but still there are really like basic information about this dance. Very important for me it was that the joget has this combining it with pre-colonial dance performance, and they have this connection with the mostly with the courts, with some kings and so on and so on. Some information we can find also in Wayan Dibia's book, which is written with Bellinger, and also some information we can find in the book Dance and Drama in Bali, which was written by Beryl Dezoete with collaboration with Walter Spies. Some information about joget also we can find in the Soedersono book. This is Indonesian researcher, dance researcher, and he is mostly concentrate on the research on Javanese dances, but still in some of his books, for example, Seni Pertunjukan Indonesia, the Era Globalisasi, we can find some information about Bali, but the thing what he was writing about the joget, he was saying that the joget was formed after 1945, which is not really correct information. The main thing what we have to know about the joget is that for sure this dance performances, they are the most popular in the north part of Bali. How we have lots of types of joget. For example, joget bumbung, it's a joget performed to the bamboo instrument music. Joget tua, really interesting also because it's performed by women in their 60s and more than 60 years old. Joget Pingitan has connection with black magic. Joget Gandrung, for example, is performed very often by some young boys. And then we have Leko, Gundeng, Adar, and finally Joget Sangburni, the most interesting one for me because has connection to the sacral sphere. And to left, Joget Dandut and Joget Hot or Porno. The two last one, they are really popular now. And actually, when you type to the YouTube the word joget, for sure, it like in 60% you will see this joget hot or porno because they are the most popular one. Joget comes from East Java, has connection with the Tayuban style from Central Java and also Ronggeng from West Javanese dance tradition, and it is associated mainly with activity of courtesan. That's why there's this evaluation from traditional joget, joget bumbung to joget hot or porno. As I already said, currently the main the joget is main entertainment, and it has the social connection. It's performed for having fun, to have a break after everyday life, after hard work, and so on and so on. The problem with joget is this connection, what I already said, that the joget has connection with these two last types of this dance performance, especially the strong connection with joget, porno or hot. That is why very difficult is to find the dancers who would like to perform this kind of dance performances. That is why mostly families organized their own groups. What does this mean? That the father is the main leader of the gamelan group of the musicians, daughters or cousins, they are dancers, mother or grandmother helping with the makeup and preparing the dancers to perform. So it's the most popular way how the joget groups are organized. Joget dancers mostly dance before they get married. When they get married, actually there's several dancers what I met during my research who are still dancing joget after they are married. What you can see on the slide, this is the joget dances which are performed in the traditional clothes. So they have clothes which we called kebaya, and then batik or different traditional Balinese material. This is the costume, sorry, this is the quite black photo, but I made it in the night. This is the costume which is used mostly for this more free version of the joget. And for example, the material which is covered the legs has the elastic part. So the movement of the legs can be more open than in the traditional way of joget. You can see also the dancers, mostly they are teenagers, as you can see on the photos. The main part of the costume in every type of joget, it's a gelong. This is the head cover, which has connection with the legok dance. And the legok dance, as I told you already, has connection to the religion. The joget dance is accompanied mainly by tinkling. This is the bamboo tubes instruments. Also gamelan joget bumbung. There are also the groups which are mostly have the bamboo instruments, and also some grantangan instruments which are more metallophones. Some of the groups has also like the modern style, so they have this accompaniment with some electric guitars or keyboard. Joget is the most popular in the northern part of Bali, but still we can find this free kind of types of joget in Negara and Tabanan. And when we organize the joget shows or performances during the birthday, so when the young couple has child, mostly when it's the child will be a boy child, so the joget is organized for the small boy. Wedding ceremony, tiga bulanan, this is the ceremony for very young kids. Then some dance drama and dramas as Arja Calonarang, also theater Wayang Kuling, Odalan, and so on and so on. Some national holidays, the joget is really popular during the national holidays on Bali. Of course, some shows for tourists, because it's only one dance, which is during the dance, we can go to the interaction with the audience. This is only one dance in Bali when we can do this. That's why it's so popular for the tourists, because the tourists love to feel that they are in the Balinese culture. So this kind of dance can make this feeling for them. And the last joget Sangburni, it is organized, for example, when someone is ill, and this kind of joget has connection with sacral part of beliefs of Balinese. doesn't matter what type of joget, maybe besides of this joget hot and porno, all the performances will start with the praying. Praying which start with priest Pemanku. This is the man here. Mostly Pemanku is also the leader of the group. Why it's happened like this? Because it's a cheaper version for all the groups, because the groups don't have to pay for the leading prayers before performance. I would try to show you the movie. I hope. Praying will take like few minutes before the performances. As you saw, the dancers during the praying, that they're just preparing themselves to the performance. Then everything starts. The parts of joget dance is pembukaan, it's like the opening part, then gibing, when the dancer will go, and mapang, this is the parts where dancer will go to the interaction with the audience, then some jaipongan, the more sexy part of the dance, and the closer one, penutupan. How it's look, the opening one, the short movie. When the dancer is going to the interaction with the audience, there is the one part for like drama. And when the audience, they know what to do, so they perform the normal life, women and men during their marriage. And it's looked like this. This is the moment when the dancer and her partner, they will show the normal life when someone is already married. And what about joget sangburni? Joget sangburni is performed in the different kind of clothes. This will be more traditional one. And joget sangburni performed by inhabitants of the village of the name of the same name. So joget sangburni is the name of the name comes from the name of the village where it's performed. For me, joget, it's a cultural performance. It's a type of the action where the subject of the action are not only the dancers, musicians, and also people who are chosen by the dancers, but also during this cultural performances, we have this whole community, all the participants who are joining as a viewer or in the different kind of participation people. Also, part of the joget is this prayers and pemanku, who are like leading the praying time. Sangburnik Sacral Joget takes place after the sunset, so it's the atmosphere of darkness, some magic probably. The Joget Sangburni performative space include the stage space, which is in the inner courtyard of the temple. So this is what is very unusual for the Joget Sangburni, because this is only one Joget which is performed in the temple. So it's mean that this dance has more connection with Tariwali, the first group of the Balinese dances, than with Tari Bali Balihan, the third group what I already described to you. The sonic character of the show created by the Joget Sangburni sound space. So it's not only the music, but also the music, which is mostly performed by gamelan Grantang or Joget Bumbung. Musician, you can see here some photos. The most popular in Sangburni is gamelan Grantangan, which has also some gong kebiar instruments in it. And why they are used? Because the gong kebiar instruments, they are more loud. So it's mean that everyone in the village can hear that the joget is coming. The most important when we analyze the Joget Sangburni as a dance performance is to know that sound is also created, but sounds is coming from outside of the stage space. This is not only the musicians or not only the music, but also the sounds which are coming from audience. This is the creation of the one atmosphere. When we talk about performances, for me, in the Joget, the about performance, but performers. In Joget, performers, they are not only the dancers, musicians, but also priests, adults, women, men, and all the audience who are in the temple in the same time when the dance is going on. Future dances are chosen by priest Pemanku. So it's mean that not everyone can be a dancer of Joget Sangburni. The girls has to be chosen by the priest. Mostly they are chosen when they have 6, 8 years old, and they are stay in the one temple as a dancers of Joget Sangburni. Sometimes it's happened that girls can feel that they would love to be Joget Sangburni dancers. And then when they have this feeling, sometimes some of my dancers friends, they said that they have this dream about being Joget Sangburni dancers. You have the one story on the slide. One girl, she's already 22, living outside of the village, but because she is a Joget Sangburni dancer, when something is happened in her temple, she has to go back to the village and dance. And this is this girl. You can see the difference between the short movie before and this one, especially when you look for the audience, you can see the audience, they're wearing the Adat clothes, and yeah, they create the atmosphere of temple. I have more examples, but I think I'm out of the time. So on the end, I would like to say that the most important function of the Joget Sangburni is that it's ordering during when someone is ill. So has this healing function. So it's the function which is really unusual when we talk about Joget as a group of the dance. What my friend said about Joget, for example, Ketut Darmada, he said that Joget was and it will be his trend in the tradition in Sangburni. We do not follow fashion. We have a specific repertoire of the dances gestures. We don't earn much. We don't earn at all. But living according to the tradition, we know that Joget will heal us in this case of the illness. So the next part of my research, what I would like to concentrate, what was the role of the Joget Sangburni during the COVID pandemic? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation, and well, I was really delighted to hear about it, because it was like really terra incognita for me. So really great to hear about it. So I bet we'll have some like probably naive questions for you in the end, but I have like one for sure. But yeah, I will keep it for the end. So Miss Marta, are you ready?
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, now it's perfect, Marta.
Oh,
so
great. I'm glad. Yes, thank you very much. I will also load my presentation. Is it visible? Is the presentation visible?
We can, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Marta Janowicz, and as the professor said, I'm also from the Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, and I'm a graduate student, currently writing my master's thesis on the issue of North Korean refugees in South Korea. And as a part of my research, I am also combining an overview of northern policies under different administrations in the Republic of Korea, and this is what I would like to focus on today. So the title of my presentation is From Anti-Communism to Sunshine Policy. Therefore, I will cover the policies from the establishment of the Republic of Korea, also known as South Korea, till the administration of Kim Dae-jung that ended in 2003. I will touch on the historical background, and then I will jump into the overview of the northern policies. The reason we have two Koreas, and therefore international inter-Korean relations and policies, northern policies in South Korea, southern policies in North Korea, is the fact that Korea was divided after the Second World War. And what led to this division? First of all, it was the end of the independent Korea. Korea was an independent country for almost 2,000 years prior to being annexed by Japan. And before being annexed by Japan, it ended its long-standing policy of SADE with China, which meant that Korea was a vassal state towards China, and it recognized China as the supreme force and its superior in the world politics. However, it ended with the fall of China, with the Opium Wars and the British and French presence in mainland China in the late 19th century. Therefore, Korea wanted to become truly independent, and it transitioned from a kingdom vassal state to China to an empire, a very short-lived empire because it lasted only for 13 years, and in truth it lasted for maybe about 4 or 5 years because Japan started taking control of Korean politics, and both internal and external Korean politics in the early 20th century. Japan formally annexed Korea in 1910. However, there were treaties before that gradually gave Japan control of Korean government, of Korean military, and finally in 1910 they signed the annexation treaty, and Korea became part of the Japanese Empire, and it stayed part of the Japanese Empire until 1945, in which year Japan lost in the Second World War and surrendered to the USSR and the US. During the Japanese rule, Koreans struggled for independence. The independent movement was very strong both inside Korea and also outside in the US and China, with the government in exile and many activists who tried to interest the rest of the world in the Korean issue. The end of the World War II was a glimmer of hope for the Korean people for true independence, and they even started working on establishing their own independent state, People's Republic of Korea, which was very short-lived because after 2 or 3 weeks, the USSR and the US decided that Korea and the Korean people were not ready for independence, were not ready to govern themselves, and they decided to occupy Korea, dividing it into 2 zones of influence. One was the USSR zone and the other was the US zone. As you probably know, the division was made along the 38th parallel, which is a very arbitrary and one-sided decision made by the US. The US was worried that the USSR would eventually occupy whole of Korea because their army was much closer to the peninsula than the Americans were. Therefore, the government assigned 2 young officers who knew nothing about Korea, about its history, about its geography, about the tradition, and those 2 young officers were assigned the task of drawing the line of division between the USSR and the US occupation zone, and they chose the 38th parallel as it divided the peninsula in more or less equal parts, but ensured that Seoul, the Korea's capital, was in the US controlled zone. And this division was supposed to be only temporal. The plan was to help the transition from the very traditional state into a democracy. However, as we all probably know, it didn't happen that way, and the division became a permanent aspect of the East Asian political landscape. The unification, initial unification plans, as I said, failed, and 2 Korean states emerged in 1948. In the north, it was the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, led by Kim Il-sung on the right, the very kindly-looking gentleman, and in the south, it was the Republic of Korea, led by Syngman Rhee, who was backed by the US. And he became the first president of Republic of Korea, thus beginning the First Republic, the period of First Republic in South Korea. What was his stance on North Korea? What were his policies? Truth be told, Syngman Rhee never adopted a formalized and official policy towards North Korea. However, he was very vocal and very honest about his views on the northern neighbor. And the most important characteristics of his views on North Korea was anti-communism. Syngman Rhee was a Western educated nationalist, and he thought that there can be no cooperation with communists. He didn't want to even entertain the idea of a diplomatic solution in which both his democratic, what he called, country would negotiate with the communists and come to some mutual agreement. He was a proponent of a military solution, and he thought that Korea should be unified under the US-led democratic ideas, not as a communist state. And he always used communism and the threat of North Korea as an excuse for many policies that made the life of regular South Koreans very hard, and he used North Korea threat as a tool of political oppression. One such example was the National Security Act, which is a policy adopted in 1948, and in principle it was supposed to ensure stability and peace in the country. However, it soon became the most prominent tool of political oppression, not only under Syngman Rhee, but also under subsequent administrations. And the core idea of this policy was opposing communism and not letting communism infiltrate South Korea. Another one of his unofficial policies towards North Korea was the popular chant among his supporters, which was March North. As I said before, Rhee was a proponent of a military solution, and he often vocally spoke about the need of a military invasion, of annexing North Korea and unifying Korea through a military action, of which the US was not, the US was not supportive, so they did not let Rhee initiate a military assault on North Korea. However, he did not have to wait long, because in 1950, on June 25th, North Korea attacked South Korea. Kim Il-sung, backed by the USSR and China, decided to launch an attack, which began the 3-year-long fighting on the Korean Peninsula, and a still ongoing war, because the war has not ended. It is only a ceasefire situation after the 27 July 1933 armistice that was signed by North Korea and the US, which is an important detail, because South Korea is not a party of this treaty, of this armistice. So there is no possibility of North Korea and South Korea resolving the situation on their own, as the US and the UN is a side of the conflict as well. The Korean War and the aftermath of it, which was economic collapse and many casualties, legitimized a very strict anti-communist attitude in South Korea towards North Korea for a few decades to come. After Syngman Rhee's regime collapsed in 1960, the Park Chung-hee administration started in 1961. Park Chung-hee was a military general who took power by force. He organized a military coup d'etat and ruled as a military general for first 3 years before organizing general elections and winning the presidency for himself. He was a little bit more willing to cooperate with North Korea, even though officially he maintained the very strict anti-communism attitude. He did begin the process of normalizing relations between the two Korean states. Under the Park Chung-hee administration, a very important executive body was created. Back then it was called a National Unification Board, and it was a body that dedicated itself to establishing North Korea policy for the current administration and subsequent administrations, and also was responsible for coordinating inter-Korean dialogue, which at that point was non-existent. However, soon after the new era of inter-Korean relations began, and first direct talks between the two countries were held. The first talks focused mostly on humanitarian issues, and they heavily involved Red Cross organization. And both South and North Korea believed that resolving humanitarian issues first was the key to successful peace and unification negotiations in the future. As a result of those talks, both countries signed the July 4th South-North Joint Communique, which outlined the principles for the future of the inter-Korean relations and the future possibility of unification. The most important provision of this statement was that the relations between the two countries and future cooperation should be independent of foreign interference, and it should be achieved through peaceful means, as both parties at least publicly claim that they do not want to repeat the Korean War, and they do not want to launch a military assault on one another. And they emphasized the great unity of the Korean people and the need to work out their ideological and systemic differences. However, this communique didn't bear much fruit, as the North Koreans continued to launch military provocations towards South Korea. There were numerous raids into the territory of South Korea, as well as an attempt to assassinate the South Korean President Park Geun-hye. And the negotiations told mid-1970s, and for the remainder of Park Geun-hye's administration, not much was done after the communique of July 4th. And Park Geun-hye was in fact assassinated in 1979, and after his death, one of his generals, Chun Do-hwan, took power again by force, by a military coup. He was not at first elected in any way. He became very notorious for his strict internal policies, and one of the first things he did was massacre thousands of people, of his own citizens. Therefore, the work he's done towards the unification, the normalization of relations between the two Koreas is often overshadowed by the absolute fiasco of his internal policies. However, Chun Do-hwan was the first president, his administration was the first to propose an actual detailed plan of a possible unification. His plan was called the Unification Formula for Harmony and Democracy, and there were three basic principles of this plan: national self-determination, unification constitution, and joint general elections. National self-determination was another way of saying that both Koreas wanted their issue to be resolved by them without foreign interference and foreign influence. For North Korea, of course, it meant that they did not want the involvement of the US and UN. For South Korea, it meant that they wished the USSR to stay out of their negotiations with North Korea. The Unification Constitution was a proposal for the future, for the moment in which the actual unification process would begin. And it was a plan to formulate a constitution for the new unified Korea that would ensure that the new Korean state would be a democratic country, not a communist one. And the last phase of this plan, excuse me, the last phase of this plan, the joint general elections as the means of establishing the new government that would rule over the unified Korea. And excuse me, Chun Doo-hwan's administration ended quite abruptly after internal struggles and pro-democratic transformation protests and strikes. And the next president, the next administration, is the first one considered to be a democratic government. And Notawu administration also brought great changes to the northern policies, the northern attitude. One of his first acts as president was in fact addressing the North Korean issue with his July 7th declaration, which among other things emphasized the need for active inter-Korean cooperation, because prior to that moment, most of what was being done on this front was purely declarative and not much action was being taken towards more productive cooperation. One of the issues that was also a provision in this declaration were family reunions and family correspondence for separated families who after the war lost contact because parts of the families stayed in the north, parts of the families stayed in south. And this program is one of the more successful programs undertaken by any of the administration. It is still going on with varying frequency, but it still exists. Notawu also planned for economic cooperation because there was a growing discord between the southern economy and the northern economy. South Korea became more developed. It became a richer country, while North Korea was declining. The economy was declining, and due to lack of any sort of reforms and a lack of privatization of any areas of economy. And another point of the declaration insisted that both countries should assist each other in establishing and strengthening relations with other nations. This period was the end of the Cold War, and South Korea prior to 1988 did not have any official relations with the countries from the Eastern Bloc, so no relations with USSR, no relations with China, no relations with European countries such as Poland, Hungary, Yugoslavia, while North Korea did not have established relations with the Western Bloc countries, the US, France, Germany, Western Germany, of course.
Ms. Marta, would you manage, like, maybe in 2-3 minutes, because we are running?
Yes, of course. Yes, excuse me. I'm almost finished. And so they were supposed to help each other establish those relations with the countries from the other blocs. Okay, I will skip that and just touch upon Kim Yong-sam, who continued the No administration unification formula and worked towards unification. However, his efforts were greatly impacted by the nuclear crisis, the first nuclear crisis in North Korea, and also by Kim Il-sung's death, which put a halt to the negotiations and peace talks.
And the most well-known northern policy from South Korea is the Sunshine Policy of Kim Dae-jung administration, which was the first policy to soften the attitude toward North Korea and that put cooperation before confrontation. According to Sunshine Policy, the road to unification led through first reconciliation and establishing functioning cooperation in terms of economy, humanitarian issues, as well as international policies. And Kim Dae-jung was also the one who established the Ministry of Unification, which is solely dedicated to the issue of North Korea, among others, the refugee reassimilation program. And he also held the first Korean summit of 2000, which was a huge event for the relations between the two Koreas and gave beginning to the new turn in those relations. For his work towards the peace on the Korean Peninsula and the betterment of the relations, he received a Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, and that is all because we're running out of time. Thank you for your attention, and I hope that you would like to later further your knowledge on the Korean issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marta, for this very informative presentation. And yeah, so it seems that so it's only me left. I mean, it's like my presentation is the last. We have nobody else, right? Because yeah, we had like 7, so now we are 4. So, well, Renata said that, you know, it's she said that it's a very serious panel. I bet I know what you meant, but actually, well, my presentation may seem to my topic may seem serious, but hopefully it will not be boring, right? Because I know that sometimes it is so that we come from, like, we represent like other well, various approaches and so on in science, and in our research attitudes differ and so on, but hopefully you will like it. So let me okay, so let me share my presentation with you. Okay, hopefully it will be okay. Let me start it. We'll see if it works. Okay, I have to agree. So Zoom will be able to share. Oh, excuse me. Okay, can you see? I don't know if can you see my presentation or not?
Not.
Okay, so I have. Let me. Okay, now you'll. Okay, now you'll see it. Okay, because I had to agree that now yes, I think.
Now it works.
Yeah. Okay, I had to agree. So my laptop will be allowed to share the content with you. So without further ado, actually my paper, because I wrote a paper about it, but it's dedicated to the implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative. I bet, well, you must have heard about the Belt and Road Initiative. So we look at it from different angles, including political, economic, and social aspects. Well, so in this case, I will focus mainly on political aspects, focusing on the cooperation of the People's Republic of China and its attitude with Syria, with the Syrian government, and its attitude towards the Syrian conflict, which is still ongoing, as you know, in the region. Okay, let me move with my presentation. So, well, as far as theoretical background is concerned, my biggest concern was connected with the Belt and Road Initiative as a grand strategy. I mean, a grand strategy is well defined in political science, and some scholars define or try to define the Belt and Road Initiative as a kind of Chinese grand strategy, or even some of them even call it the Chinese grand strategy. What is not really true and in order to prove it, I will not only present my opinions, but also opinions of very well-known scholars dealing with the Chinese foreign policy. And for example, in this case, well, the first quote you can see, Stensny and Gang, they don't refer to the BRI as the grand strategy. They rather describe it as a crucial pillar, namely a part of the emerging grand strategy. The same in the case of Anushiravan Ehteshami. He's it's a British scholar of Iranian origin, and again, in this quote, you can see that he refers to BRI as a key element of Beijing's grand strategy. Again, it's just a part of the grand strategy, not a grand strategy itself. Also, the Chinese scholars, they define it as a project, as a, well, it's in the name, as an initiative rather than any grand strategy, because the grand strategy is the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, which is supposed, as you know, to be completed by 2049 in order to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the People's Republic of China. So it's quite symbolic. But in this case, the Belt and Road Initiative, although if it's successful and completed, it will be the biggest ever project in the history of the world. But still, it's just a part of the grand strategy, not the grand strategy itself. It's also about commercial ties, and I will come back to that in a few minutes. So you will see that actually it's very true. So in the end of the day, when maybe it's not very true in the case of Syria and the Chinese-Syrian relations right now, but in the end of the day, we can say that the whole project is about money. So, well, the Chinese authorities don't hide it, right? So that the main, sustainable growth and everything, peace in the world, these are like traditional elements of the Chinese foreign policy. But still, they don't hide it, that actually the main, one of the main objectives of this initiative is to make sure that the Chinese citizens, Chinese nation gets, wealthier, and the standard of living will be higher, and so on. Well, at the same time, they want the same for other nations participating in the initiative. However, the ultimate goal is that the Chinese nation should profit from this initiative. In the case of the Syrian conflict and Syria itself, it's quite complex. Well, China changed its attitude toward the Syrian conflict in 2016. And somebody could say that, the event was not of a big significance, well, because from time to time states change, modify their foreign policies, and that's life. However, once you know, and I guess much about the Chinese foreign policy, in this case, it was a very unique event. Why? Because the Chinese never take sides. I should not use the word never, but they rather not take sides in international conflicts. So they never ever try to support one side or another. As long as, let's say, we have, for example, two sides in conflict, then they don't really support one side against another. They rather try to become, China tries to become a kind of middleman between these two fighting sides, and so on. So that was a very unique event. Well, I was trying to identify the reasons behind this decision, because we as for example, as political scientists, we can observe the phenomenon, and that's it. But the question is, what were the real reasons? I should add here the real reasons behind the decision, because they might have differed from these declarative reasons, right? So those reasons which were declared in 2016. Later, what are the main objectives of the Chinese engagement in Syria? Again, we can focus on those declared objectives, namely formal objectives of the Chinese engagement. And at the same time, as political scientists, we should rather or maybe also focus on these real objectives, right? Those this so-called hidden agenda, and it's a very important element of every foreign policy, of every strategy. It's also very true about the Chinese foreign policy. They never ever reveal the real objectives, and it's not only that they want to hide them for political reasons or economic reasons. It's a cultural thing, right? So they do it because that's the way it is, right? So you never ever reveal everything you want to say. You never ever say everything because this secret should be somewhere in the background, right? So your interlocutor should somehow figure out what are your real intentions, and they always come to this conclusion that if you are smart, you will get the message, right? If you are not smart, you will not get the message. So it's a cultural thing. So they are, well, this way they differ from Westerners, and I mean, or to be more precise, from the Americans or Europeans. We tend to say everything we think in a few sentences, and we use blunt words and everything. So there are no secrets, and we can bluntly say what we think or imagine. And at the same time, the Chinese never ever do that for as I said, for cultural reasons. So, well, yeah, that's the thing, you know. And then what are the consequences of this change? So it will be a more or less related to scenario making. So the first part, which is related to these reasons, I mean, it's very important to understand that within this project, the Middle East is seen as an extension of China's periphery. It was also defined a new zone of fragility. In the past, the People's Republic of China focused mainly on its immediate neighborhood, namely Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and well, both Korean states, but especially on the people on North Korea. And at the same time, they also focus obviously on the bilateral relations with the Russian Federation, and that was that. So they were paying attention to everything what was going on in the immediate neighborhood. With the introduction of the Belt and Road Initiative, the scope of this periphery was extended, and right now it includes also the Middle East region. The problem is that we have so many conflicts, ongoing conflicts and disputes in the Middle East, that it's no longer possible for the Chinese to be only observers in the region and middlemen. Well, this role is quite positive, and China tries to play it in some cases, but they don't have, I would say, this luxury of being a middleman anymore. So they understood, probably, that's what I think, that the Chinese authorities understood that they, well, in order to achieve their objectives, they will have to, from time to time, take sides in international conflicts, because, well, you cannot be friends with everybody. And in the end of the day, well, you have to calculate more or less, you have to choose the winning side. That's what they are trying to do, and that's what they did in the case of in the case of Syria. Well, they perceive or try to present the Belt and Road Initiative as a conflict resolution tool. What do the Chinese mean saying that? Well, at once they introduced the BRI. It's all about cooperation. It's not about disputes. It's not about conflicts. It's not about rivalry. Rather than all participating states should become economic partners, especially economic partners. And they believe in a very simple rule that once we cooperate and we share economic interests, then we don't fight, right? Because both sides have something to lose. So instead of fighting, we would rather focus on cooperation, and we'll just exchange goods, services, and so on. Well, the Syrian conflict in this case is seen as a threat to the southern corridor. Well, I will show you the map in a few minutes, so you'll I bet You saw it, you have already seen it, but still, it's important to understand that the Syrian territory plays can play a very significant role in the whole project, not only in the Middle East, but also on a global scale, and I will try to prove it pretty soon. Well, and the last argument here is that we can, and I perceive it this way, that it's the Chinese game versus the Russian and the Iranian presence in Syria. Well, they cooperate in Syria, no doubt about it. So they go hand in hand in many cases, but still we have a kind of, I would not use the word rivalry, but a kind of competition between these three partners in Syria. So they all of them support President Bashar Assad and I should not say the ruling party, because there is no party, but right now actually, but the ruling elites in Syria. So they all these three actors support the Syrian authorities of the Bashar Assad regime, but that's it. That's what that's all what they have in common. Once you start analyzing ideological factors, there is no way you can find anything in common. What they have for example, the Chinese have in common with the Islamic Republic of Iran, where they have economic interests and everything, but from the ideological point of view, it's like two worlds, right? So we have a theocratical state on one side, and then a communist state on the other side, which is actually not really. The state does not really support any religion, right? So, and it's just opposite. Well, that's the way it is. And then the Iranian land forces, another reason for that, the Chinese entered, let's say, the Syrian conflict when everything was done. That when it was clear that Bashar al-Assad will probably win the civil war in Syria, that his forces will take advantage of the situation, and then with the support of Iran and the Russian Federation, they will simply win this conflict. So once it was almost done, and the Chinese were sure that yes, Assad will stay, and it was no longer in his position in Syria was no longer questioned. That was the moment when the Chinese decided to enter, saying, yes, we are here. We are supporting Bashar al-Assad, and well, we are doing that for the sake of regional stability and so on, because that was the official message. Well, I promised to show you this map. Well, as you can see, these railway connections, namely the southern corridor, it doesn't go across the Syrian territory, but once you know the situation in the region, and you know how fragile it is, and all these ethnic connections, and the presence of some terrorist groups in the area, well, the so-called Islamic State is over, but it doesn't exist anymore. However, we still have to remember that more than 8,000 fighters are somewhere there. I mean, maybe not physically in Syria, or maybe in Iraq. We don't know about it, but I bet they are somewhere, and you never know. So that the area is very fragile, and if not this group, like another groups may pop up. So they have to really pay attention to what's going on here. It's not in the map, but it's not marked here. But they're also planning new infrastructure crossing Iraq and Syria, and this way they would like to get access to the Eastern Mediterranean in order to maximize security of maritime connections and so on. And this, at the same time, the Chinese initiative will be less fragile and it will be well secured from any political changes, for example, in the Red Sea area, will be more secure. There will be no risk of any blockade of the Suez Canal and so on. So that's why the Syrian territory is quite important, and the most important thing for the Chinese is to make sure that there is stability and peace, and they don't have any problem, any conflict in in this area, so their investments will be safe. They will be able to build factories and so on. What are the objectives? Well, as I said, the first one, I think it's quite clear. They want to be on the winning side, because when you are on the winning side, you have access to investments. If there are any public tenders, the Chinese companies will be very competitive, and it's highly probable that probable that they will win these public tenders, and the infrastructure is ruined in almost completely destroyed in most of the Syrian cities. So the money and the investments will be needed, and the Chinese, they have capital. They will be able to come with the investments, with the capital, and rebuild Syrian cities. Of course, they will not do it for charity purposes and so on, for humanitarian purposes. They will just do it. As I said, it's in the name. This kind of help will be seen as a kind of investment for the future. And as we all know, the Chinese can wait, so they can wait even for 50 or 60 years for benefits of this policy. So it's, again, that's the difference between the Europeans, for example, and the Chinese. They are very patient, and today they are planning something for the second half of the 21st century. So yeah, for generations to come. Well, they will also, as I said, secure the BRI Southern Corridor. And what is very important here, and it's well, of course, they do not declare it, but it's quite obvious to me. I don't know if you will agree with me or not, but I'm quite sure that they do it also to block Western peace initiatives. That's the first thing. And they do want to block any Western presence in this area. Because once we have, let's just imagine, any Syrian rebel group wins the conflict, so it will be more than, it will be clear that this particular rebel group will support Western countries, and at the same time, the Chinese will lose their leverage in this part of the region, right? So it's quite obvious that in this chessmate, I mean, the Chinese move the figures to Syria just to block any potential activities of Western states, especially of the United States. Another hidden factor here is that they want to combat, and that's what they did. They wanted to combat Uyghur militancy in Syria. Like many Uyghurs joined the so-called Islamic State, and they became fighters. They became fighters in Syria. So it's a kind of secret, but you know, that's the secret everybody knows about. But they sent some special troops to Syria in order to, we have to put it bluntly, in order to eliminate these terrorists, in this case Uyghurs, right? So just first to make sure that they will not come back to China, and second, to get rid of this problem, like to get rid of the most radical critics of the rule over Xinjiang. So, well, there are no statistics about it. However, this factor resembles the Russian presence in Syria. I mean, the Russians did the same in order to fight radical Islamists coming from Dagestan, Chechnya, and other parts of the Russian Caucasus, right? So it was their policy was, the Chinese policy will resemble to some extent the Russian policy with regard to fighting terrorist groups in Syria. Well, new tenders and investments, as I said, it's all about money, so it can be treated. Well, today we help Bashar al-Assad, so well, it's obvious that he or his predecessors will help us in the future, because they will remember, okay, the ones you help us, so now you are our friends, so basically we'll invite you, and we'll invite your investments in Syria, right? Consequences, very briefly. Well, I'm quite sure that the Syrian case proves that China will not be able to apply its traditional strategy of non-interference. So, I mean, sitting in the back seat is not possible anymore for China. especially with Xi Jinping. The moment he openly said that yes, our objective is that China will become a superpower, and yes, we want to take a responsibility for international order. The moment he said that, that was the end of a kind, well, of, let's say, of the post-war period in China's history, right? Because as you remember, the previous strategy was like keep low profile, don't be develop, but keep low profile, don't be too visible, and so on and so on. Right now, the strategy has been changed, and the Chinese don't hide it that they have their own ambitions and they want to really shape the international order. Well, so basically, I see these changes in the Middle East, in their policy towards the Middle East, and especially towards the Syrian conflict, as a prelude to further changes within the PRC's foreign policy. So still, the very similar activities or phenomena will most probably be observed in the case of the ongoing Yemeni conflict, the Kurdish question, the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic of Iran, tensions within the Gulf Cooperation Council. Here, it's the same. The Chinese are now trying to. They're trying to avoid taking sides, but it's no longer possible for many reasons, right? But well, it doesn't really change the fact that they will be very cautious and selective. So in my opinion, they will always wait till the last minute just to make sure that they will always be on the winning side. So it's not like in the case of some Western states, especially for example, the United States or France, that they, from the very beginning, they support this group or another, and the authorities are very open about it. In the case of China, I think they always wait as long as possible, and that's what I mean saying that they will be very cautious. And finally, no doubt that the Chinese have the ambitions in the region, so they will cooperate, and they cooperate with the Russian Federation, with Iran, and with Turkey. But at the same time, they will be competitors. So I do not really believe that they will really let other partners shape the international order in the region. They would rather try to be an equal partner, although they are, physically, geographically, they are far away from the region, but still, they will do their best in order to have this upper hand and at least control the situation on the ground. So if there is nothing not in line with the Beijing's expectations, I'm quite sure that they will intervene. Yeah, so that's all. Very briefly, because we were just okay. I will stop sharing. Okay, I'm back. Okay, are you with me? Was it very boring or not? Okay, because well, we actually ran out of time, but yeah, I think we can have 2 or 3 questions or something. Yeah, Andrea?
I'm really very sorry. It was absolutely not boring. It was interesting, your presentation, and thank you very much for it.
But for this, so I will play it, in a loop.
And for this moment, again, very sorry, but I have to run already. But it was very much pleasure for me to hear your interesting presentations, and I'm ready to answer any questions or to debate, to communicate again at my email address. So if it is okay for you to.
I should not say it as a moderator, but I have a similar problem because my classes start in
This is it for me, the same.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So if there are, we can do it this way because we have our emails, right? Or we can more or less, yeah. So, if you had any questions or something, yeah, I think it would be, or Miss Maria could help us, right? So maybe on behalf of the whole panel, I would like to thank Maria and the technical staff for your support. Right, so guys, so thank you very much for today. Enjoy the rest of the day and stay safe, I would say. Yeah. during the pandemic. I mean, that's probably the most important thing, right? So stay safe, and hope to see you, one day, pretty soon, right? So have a nice day. Thank you very much for being with us, for being together. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.